Hi, welcome back to the Sales Master series. And what we would be covering in this part of the video is to look at the onboarding product a little bit more in detail. Uh, I just would like to again reiterate one concept very clearly. Onboarding is one of the use cases of the Start on Board game authoring engine framework, right? So we have the authoring engine and onboarding is a standard use case that we have built. So it's not an onboarding product. What we have is a game authoring engine which allows us to create multiple possible learning outcomes. It's just that we have currently chosen onboarding as a standard use case so that we could go to the market and then talk to people. So this is a product that's completely ready, and we did cover the various features of the product in another video. If you have not gone through that video, I would urge you to go back and then look at the video where we have spoken in detail about the various features of the onboarding platform. So what we would do in this particular video is to literally go ahead and then present the entire solution the way in which I would present it to a client. So again, I'm going to do a mock of my presentation to the client. This could definitely give you a feeler in the sense of how I am presenting. Obviously, that's not a golden standard or a benchmark, but I would like you to use your own style, your own flavor, but more importantly, capture the essence of the entire solution and the product, right? So that's extremely more important. The objective of these videos is not to replicate, I'm sure you would agree with me, but just for the newcomers who have just joined or for freshers who's going to be looking at this particular video, what I'm telling you is the need for such video is for you to understand the concepts, understand the thought process behind building these products, so that you would be able to articulate the solution to the client and understand what the client needs are. Right. So let me just now go ahead and then present the entire solution like the way in which I would present it to a client. The most important aspect. This obviously is a slide that comes after the general product introduction video. So if you have missed that particular video, I would urge you to go and look at the video, which is count number 3, if I'm not wrong, where we have spoken about the product in length. So let me assume you to be, one of my HR representatives sitting on the other end of the table, and this is how it typically starts. Yeah, I'm sure you would, definitely agree with me with the challenges that the industry is facing when it comes to onboarding a new employee. The challenges range from attritions, which could either be a pre-boarding churn, which is somebody accepting the offer and not joining the company. That's called a pre-boarding churn. And the second is infant mortality. As per industry standards and norms, certain industry actually has close to about 40 to 50% of pre-boarding churn and roughly about 25 to 30% of infant mortality. So the amount of effort that really goes behind identifying a particular candidate, if that particular candidate is not joining the organization or leaving the organization within the first 3 months, it's a huge loss to the enterprise because there is already cost and time incurred. There is opportunity lost in terms of businesses, and now we would again go back and then have to find another candidate. I'm sure you would agree with me that each of your companies might also have similar such problem. The second most important problem or challenge that an HR faces when it comes to onboarding a candidate is with regards to how productive that particular candidate could be within the organization. So any newcomer who's joining the organization is anxious to be integrated to the overall ways of working of the organization. But the biggest challenge that we face is that today the employee needs to understand and understand the ways of working and understand so many facets even before they get integrated into the system, and hence it becomes extremely difficult for them to become productive as early as possible. And the third challenge that we have is with regards to the passive learning that happens during any onboarding, where today employees sit through induction sessions where a PPT is run and videos are showcased, but not a lot of information actually gets assimilated, and hence you would find a lot of queries that still happens even after they have gone through the induction. So with this in mind, what we have done is we have built a engaging and an immersive solution using our Start on Board game authoring engine, which allows your organization to provide a unique, uh, you know, onboarding experience where your new employees are virtually transported to a world of reality that resembles your organization, within which they transact, interact, and learn about your illustrious history, the values of the company, the ways of working, the HR policies, business verticals, and your priorities, for the current year. You could also transport them to a product experience zone and help them, physically, experience, not physically experience, but they would be in a position to, virtually experience your products through the virtual experience zones that we create. So this particular platform starts as early as the pre-boarding stage, and as I mentioned, organizations which have problems of higher pre-boarding churn indexes would love to engage employees as early as the offer letter is rolled out to the candidate. And what really transpires is they would now get into an induction mode where they get to understand the values of working and ways of company even before they join the organization. So this model is going to help them make the decision if they have 2 or 3 offers in hand, to choose the company that engages with them as early in the entire process. The second stage is the induction stage, where they get through the details of the HR policies, the compliance, and the IT policies. And finally, we get into the integration phase, where they get to understand functional training, understand products, processes, and the sales functions within your organization. So the way in which this particular game is structured, it would help you standardize your onboarding offering across different geographical location. It is extremely scalable, which means to say, even if only one candidate joins in a month, you would be in a position to offer them a scalable solution. It is highly engaging, and more importantly, the retention rates are way higher than the traditional onboarding programs. You could have improved productivity in terms of the candidate understanding the nuances of your organization and getting to start working as early as possible. And more importantly, you save a lot on the logistics cost, and having array of HR representatives conducting these programs month on month religiously across the year. In terms of the overall features of the platform, the game is fully loaded with features which allows you to help employees understand your value systems. You could have forms which will help them create checklists even before they join the organization. You could run voice of employee and pulse surveys. You would be able to virtually introduce your leaders in this particular game. You could create interesting product experience zones for people to visually experience your products as they are stacked. And more importantly, you will be in a position to offer all of this through a model where they have their own leaderboard badges and a game store where they could engage or encash their points for company merchandises. So let me quickly walk you through how the game functions. Like any good, interesting game, it's modeled around an interesting movie or an interesting book, and all of this have a gripping story in its forefront. So what's important is to have a story that really captivates the imagination of employees, where they would be in a position to play the role of a protagonist whose primary intent is to synergize and bond with the organization. Once they have gone through this initial introduction, we take them through different learning paths. So in this particular model, employees would who are joining different functions could experience different learning contents, because there are different learning paths that are created, and in each of these paths there are micro learning activities which will help them understand the concepts far more clearly. For example, if it's HR onboarding, you could have an activity path or a game chapter on the legacy of your organization, your products, your value systems, and your leaders. Uh, Once they have selected a particular activity and they're entering a game room, they're virtually transported to an office space that resembles your organization. So this is where we would be able to completely configure the space to exactly look, like the way in which your organization looks. We have existing models created where we would be able to add your logos, your posters, your standees, which will help employees interact and get themselves onboarded into a virtual space. The moment they have entered your organizational 3D space, we have multiple interactions that we create. One is the virtual conversations where I could go ahead and interact with various avatars in this particular environment who could represent my leader. It could be a manager or a peer, where I would be able to understand their complete profile in terms of where in the org structure they belong to. And interestingly, you could record a video of your leaders and then play back, to the candidate. So what this does is anybody who is joining the most remote location of your company today gets to interact and know more about, the leaders and their managers even before they have met them physically. So you are creating a sense of belongingness here. As a family, you get to interact and then know each other much better. There are multiple modes of interaction that we have created. Since it's a game, it allows us for a lot of exploration and experience. And in each of these experience zones, we have created an area where you would be able to play your company's videos. We would be able to create interesting infographics, create puzzles, for the employees to interact. What's more important is the fact that there are assessments even during the onboarding phase. What does an assessment here do? The primary intent of this particular assessment is for us to measure the immediate recall, or for that matter, create toll gate assessments for people to understand the core concepts even before they move from one level to another level. And all of this also culminates in product experience zones or service experience zones that is created specifically for your organization. What you see here is a space where your employee walks into a museum looking environment where they could interact with virtual products. They could meet your product leaders and champions and get to understand your products much better. So this really helps employees retain these concepts far more better, so that once they come back to their actual workplace, they get to remember this very clearly. What's a game without leaderboards, badges, and points? So even this game has an area where you could actually ditch out points and badges and leaderboards, but more from a healthy competition space where they get to interact and understand these concepts, but at the same time they have a competitive spirit to go ahead and then measure some of this through these leaderboard badges. And all of this, remember, is configured through our authoring engine, which means to say that we reckon the need for the change of content that happens during any onboarding phase, where you could change your HR policies, you would need to update your leader profiles, or for that matter, it could be new product additions, so on and so forth. And all of this, we aid all of that by the authoring engine, which allows you to configure and modify content at any given point in time. And finally, the entire environment and experience could also be configured using our authoring engine, and that gives you the flexibility and the creative freedom to craft an experience which is very unique for your organization. Since the framework is there, but the content that we put in would provide an experience that a new employee actually would remember, and it would be a very memorable experience. So in a nutshell, what we are looking at is a 3D onboarding space, which gives you the flexibility to author content which is resembling the needs of your organization. And more importantly, it would give you the scalability that's required for you to go beyond just the onboarding use case to actually have other functional training and process training within this particular environment. Now let me show you an example of how the game actually looks like. So the moment I log into the platform, I select my organization and I would integrate this platform with your Active Directory, and you would be able to launch this platform from your browsers, or it's available on Android iOS stores, or more importantly as a SCOM package within your LMS. So the moment I log in, I get to choose my own set of avatars, and we are now launching a new module where you would also be in a position to configure an avatar of your liking, which means to say you could change the skin tone, the hair texture, and the dress that the avatar wears, so that you could have a unique avatar style which is of your liking. So this is the context setting tutorial module that I was talking to you about, which gives you a quick sense of how the candidate who is joining in is now virtually transported to a world where they would need to build a synergy or bond between themselves and the organization. So the tree that you see here represents the metaphysical nature of the physical and mental well-being of your organization. And the primary intent of this particular game is to build the synergy or bond between the newcomer, who is the player, and the organization. So this is a tutorial mode which is there for about 3 to 5 minutes, which will set the context to the player in terms of why they are playing this particular game and what is the overall objective. Once they have gone through this, there is a tutorial mode which will help them on the navigational aspects of how they would need to navigate in this particular game and how they would need to play this game. And once they have completed the tutorial, now they use the teleporter mode to actually get themselves teleported to their organization. So once they have teleported to the organization, so this is where we show them their own profile in terms of their progression of the overall game completion, activity completion, and mission progress. So they would be in a position to now transport to different worlds. And even before we do that, we give them various login rewards. We have modeled this game around multiple psychological nudges, which allows them for securing a lot of these login rewards and points, which they could encash for the company related store for merchandise. So in terms of the various platform features, as I told you, we could have leaderboards, we could have our own achievements, where I could secure my own badges, at the end of the day. And once I've done that, let me just virtually showcase and transport you to a different platform, right? So every activity has its own set of mission, and each of these missions are timed missions where the player needs to complete it within certain point in time. So here the player would now be transported to a world where they would need to understand the company's values and history, and the first mission is for them to acclimatize themselves to the overall historic milestones of the organization. So now let me show you how the entire 3D model works. In this particular game, you could have people who have not even played a game also play this particular game, because there are multiple cues. The only way to navigate this particular avatar is to use the arrow keys on the player's keyboard, and there are arrow marks which would direct the player to the exact point of interaction. So this is a 3D reception world that we have created of an organization, where we would be in a position to go ahead and interact with each of these characters who could represent the HR or people who could welcome you. So in this particular game, we would configure the entire content based on your learning needs or your onboarding needs, which means to say it could be helping you have your HR policies, values created through this particular platform, right? So here what we're trying to do right now is to have a conversation with the HR, and now the entire content again is coming from the onboarding engine, and you would be in a position to actually ask questions to your new joiners, right? So here I'm asking questions in terms of how do you typically start your day, and if I'm choosing exercise or meditation as the response, the next set of response actually from the computer comes in relation to the options that I've chosen. So in this manner, it gives you a very personalized, option of interacting with various elements in this particular game. So likewise, I'm just going to quickly, finish this particular conversation so that I could show you different, aspects of the game. Just give me a second. Right. We have provisions to create 3D avatars which resemble, your leaders. But we would recommend having 2D profiles where even if the leader, changes, we would be able to change the, content profile. So this is what we call the walkthrough, where the HR is walking me through, like in real world, to different areas to explain the, different facets. So here now I'm going into a virtual world to understand more about the historic milestones of the organization, where I could, go ahead and then learn more about the history, the founders. So each of this content that you're seeing here is coming from the authoring engine. So not only this particular content, you will be able to, create multiple videos, and we would be able to give you a complete, virtual walkthrough. So let me show you a different, space again. So in this particular model, I'm going to show you, I've moved into the second floor of the organization. The primary intent for me is to look at the historic milestones of the organization, where I could understand and drill down into each of these as well. So the moment I interact with this, I could have a video of the entire onboarding scenario played, so that you could play the videos that you currently have shot about your organization. So this environment could be completely configured to have your culture, your values. So whatever content that you see here in terms of a culture is coming from the backend engine, and we would be able to bring in different content based on your organizational needs. What you also see here is, I would like to bring your attention to this particular text here in Hindi. "Hey, हमारी company का सिद्धांत है." We have had clients who have said that they have target audience who would like to view content in the regional languages as well. So the platform has the capability for us to present these content in vernacular languages. So here I could go ahead and then look at these awards and achievements, where I could now go ahead and then interact with these to know more. But what I'm going to do right now is where I'm going to transport myself into a different department called the claims department. And within the claims department, I would be in a position to simulate my own work style as well. So this is my desk, and I could simulate an inbox. In this particular inbox, I could have emails where I could have, let us say, a customer complaint if it's an insurance process, or if it's automotive, if there is a query, you would be in a position to create these customer emails, so that you could measure TAT, you could measure the intent, you could measure the way in which people respond to when such a query actually comes in. Right. So similarly, you could have voice process integrated, you could have emails, you could have application process, so that you will be able to train your employees and get them to, work, faster and become productive as early as possible. So those are the advantages, that we currently have, using this particular platform. Right. So again, each of this content, again, I'm reminding you, comes from the authoring engine, and what we have is a bare shell. And what we are creating is a content that is quite unique and specific to your organization. So this is where I'm going to again interact with a particular avatar and show you an avatar profile. So here I could go ahead and then understand the profile of a particular employee, where I would go ahead and then learn more about them. I could learn about their org structure in terms of where in the org structure they belong. I could have a video message recorded of that particular employee, so that we could play it in this particular platform. And if required, we would also be able to send an email to the SPOC in case if you have any queries. So wherever organizations have a buddy system, we would be able to create a buddy system using this particular platform. So this is where I'm going to show you a couple of aspects of another mode of interaction, where I could have conversations with employees. So I'm going to quickly skip this part because we have already seen different modes of conversation. But what's interesting is, after this particular conversation is over, I could now go ahead and then have different interactables where now I go ahead and then collect these snippets on the values of the organization. So I could go around the office. So it's a mini game where I could now go ahead and then interact with multiple objects like this, and then try and collect a lot of inputs and insights on the various mini games that happen within the organization, right? So let me now just quickly move ahead and then show you a repository. So what we have is a knowledge mine. In the knowledge mine, we have a complete repository, of all your content. So if you have a SharePoint, within your organization, we would be able to link it to your SharePoint, or we could consolidate all your videos and policies in one single place so that it becomes much easier for people to actually relate to. What the game also does is we have already pre-built multiple environments. So now I could take the elevator to move from one space to another space, which will virtually transport me to a different department. So here I have come into the claims department. I did mention about the toll gate assessments earlier. So right now the gate is locked. I will not be able to move in, but unless and until I respond to the questions that the game asks me, and these are topics that are covered before. So unless and until I respond to these questions, I would not be given access. And the moment an access is granted, I would have my mission rewards. These could be points and badges that I would be able to collect. So in this particular space, now I've come in, and this is where we also move into some kind of a process training. So this platform is not only used for induction, and now let me take you to a process training where if I'm interacting with an executive here, I get to understand the end-to-end process. So this is a process training where we start from the process origination. So this could be a customer request until the time that the entire process fulfillment takes place. So typically in process training, what we follow is what we call as process shadowing. So even here, what we do is to shadow the entire process from one department to another department and help your employees understand the exact mental model of how a process actually works. So here, if you look at it, we give them perspectives in terms of the inputs that are required for a process. We help them understand and validate their knowledge of the different activities that one needs to perform to complete a particular process, right? So this is something important that they would need to understand, and you could teach them on multiple exceptions and multiple pathways that actually takes place during process training. The added advantage of this particular system is that because all of this content is coming from the authoring engine, at any given point in time, if there is a process change, you would be able to change the content and the system automatically starts using it. So this is where you see that there is inputs to a process, there is set of activities, objective, key people, and output, and the game automatically creates a cross-functional flowchart so that your employees get a complete mental model of an end-to-end process. So in a nutshell, we are talking about a framework where we simulate an office environment, and based on your needs, we create a content and provide an experience which is quite similar to how you would if a new employee walks into a physical setup of your organization and you give them a walkthrough of different departments, talk to them about policies. And what we have taken here is in a typical onboarding session, you make them sit in one single room and you give them a walkthrough using a PowerPoint presentation. But what this game does is it helps you, treat every single employee who is joining your organization as an individual use case and walk them through different flows. So that's only possible in a virtual setup. It might not be possible in a physical environment, where you have about 10, 15, 30, 50 people joining on one single day. So this is, the way in which we provide an experience, to your employees who are joining your organization, where they get a virtual walkthrough and help them understand your value systems, your history, introduce them to your leaders, your HR policies, ways of working, and business verticals. So this gives you a quick overview of the capability of the platform. We'll be more than happy to understand your needs and how we could leverage this particular framework to give you an immersive and impactful experience. Thank you so much.